Hello students. Go ahead and begin by opening your interactive notebook to the table of contents. That's going to be on page 0 for Ms. Reddick's students. And I want you to go ahead and add in today's entry. Place value / powers of 10. Today we're going to be talking about place value and powers of 10. Go ahead and put the page number and the date. In my interactive notebook, it's page 1, and the date is August 30th. After you've completed your table of contents entry, go ahead and turn to the next page in your interactive notebook. Remember, you are not writing on the left side of the page, so anything you're writing has to be done on the right side. Leave that left side blank. I want you to title it the same thing that you called it in your table of contents, place value and powers of 10. That way you can find it easily. And go ahead and write the EQ. EQ stands for essential question. And I want you to write this down. You should be able to answer this question by the end of the video today. The question is, how would you teach a 5th grader to multiply a number by 1/10,000th? How would you teach a 5th grader to multiply a number by 1/10,000th? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. If you need more time to copy that essential question, go ahead and pause the video. Otherwise, we're going to copy down some place value vocabulary. This is something you should be familiar with. And I just wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, decimal point, 5, 6, 7. And then I labeled those place values. The 1 is in the thousands, thousands. That's like saying 1,000. The 2 is in the hundreds, like saying 200. The 3 is in the tens place. This one's a little different, but it's like saying 30, so it's in the tens spot. The 4 is in the ones place. Then there's a decimal. Right underneath that decimal, I wrote the word and. We'll talk about why in just a second, but I do want you to copy that word and. After the decimal, you'll see a 5. That is the tenths spot with a TH. The 6 is in the hundredths place. And the 7 is in the thousandths place. I'm going to give you a second still to copy that, and I want to talk to you about place value vocabulary. When you are reading a number, pretty much everybody can read a number that is not got a decimal. So 1,234. We've got that pretty well. But when we start going behind the decimal, that's when it gets a little bit confusing. It doesn't have to be. Just read the number as if there was no decimal. So right here, it's 567. And then read out the place that the last number ended. So 567 thousandths. Or if that 7 wasn't there, it would be 56 hundredths. If the 6 wasn't there, it would be 5 tenths. If you need to copy, go ahead and pause your video right now and get all of that information copied down. Otherwise, we're going to move on. Everybody now take out your handout sheet that you picked up when you walked in or that your teacher passed out to you. We're going to do some folding, okay? Everybody sees the dark, solid black line? I want you to fold your paper on that line so that you have like a half sheet now. After you fold it on the dark line, I want you to take your scissors and I want you to cut the dotted lines. Don't cut all the way through, only cut the side that has the dots on it. This is what you should have now, kind of some flaps, a half sheet with some flaps up and down. Okay, now I want you to fold on those dotted lines so that you have almost like a little book with some flappies in it. Okay, I have already copied mine down, so I'm going to give you a second to copy what I have. On the front of your book, I want you to write Powers of 10 trick. Remember, you can always pause the video to copy if I'm moving too fast. On the left flap, I want you to write what are powers of 10. Now let's talk about what powers of 10 are. Open up your flap, and at the top, this is where I'm explaining to you what powers of 10 are. Powers of 10 are multiples of 10. So some examples would be 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. It goes on and on. 100,000, 1,000,000. Anything with a 1 and then a bunch of zeros after it is a multiple of 10. Some commonly used powers of 10 in the 7th grade are going to be 10, 100, and 1,000. Every now and then you'll see a 10,000, not very often though. When you're done copying this, close that flap, open the right flap. We're gonna hold off on the right side for a second, and we're gonna start in the middle. Go ahead and copy down the title, Multiplication Trick and Proof. Multiplication trick and proof. Okay, what is our multiplication trick? Only writing in this middle section. When you are multiplying by a power of 10, you don't actually have to multiply it out like is happening down here on the bottom. All you have to do is move the decimal to the right one time for each zero. I'll say that again. When you're multiplying by a power of 10, all you have to do is move the decimal to the right one time for each zero. So let's look at this example. I have 16 times 1,000. When I'm looking at this number, I see, hey, 1,000, that's a power of 10. How many zeros does it have? It's got 1, 2, 3 zeros. So that means since I am multiplying, those zeros need to go over to the right, this way. So I find my decimal on a whole number. Remember, it hides at the back. And I'm going to move it 3 times to the right. 1, 2, 3. I even put my 1, 2, 3 down at the bottom so I made sure I counted. And then for every blank spot, you can fill in a 0. My decimal's hiding at the back. That means this is a whole number. So 16 times 1,000 is 16,000. If you want proof, you can look at my work down here. I actually worked it out to prove, except that I did it with 100. I worked it out to prove to you that 1,000 times 16 is 16,000. Okay? It'll work with any power of 10 when you're multiplying, and it works with any number that you're multiplying by. When you're done copying, close that flap, and let's look at the very last one, division trick and its proof. The division trick. When dividing by a power of 10, move the decimal to the left one time for each zero. So it's the exact opposite of multiplying. You still need to realize that it's a power of 10. You still have to count the zeros, but this time you're moving the decimal to the left. Let's look at this example. 51 divided by 100. I realize 100 is a power of 10. I see that there are 2 zeros. So I'm moving my decimal 2 times to the left, and I end up with 0.51, which if we're using correct place value vocabulary is called 51 hundredths. You can go ahead and copy the proof, and then when you get to class, we're going to do some practice.